Hi, welcome to my podcast, Becoming a Cut Flower Grower. I'm your host, Lydia, and I'm here to share my year of growing and selling cut flowers. I'll be giving you the lowdown on everything I'm doing and sharing all the highs and lows, the good times and the inevitable disasters, all in real time. Join me on my cut flower journey, starting right now. Hello, welcome to Tuesday. It's the 28th of April, 2026. I've just got back from putting the birdies to bed and filling up my car with petrol. And do you know what? I stopped at £70. I couldn't bear psychologically to put any more fuel in than that. It is absolutely horrendous, honestly. Anyway, it's been a really cold day, and I've got a secret to tell you. I've just put the heating on, which I feel really, really guilty about. But it was actually quite cold inside. And all this warm weather we've had over the last few weeks, I've completely got acclimatized to it. The shorts came out, and I love shorts. So I've been in them every day. And I was just so used to the temperature. And then today it wasn't freezing, but for me, it was super, super cold. So I've just whacked the heating on for a little bit, but I feel really guilty. And on top of filling my car up as well, also double guilty. So I hope you've had a great weekend, and I hope your week is going well. I've got some things to tell you about this evening. But one of the first things is I took the dog for a walk this afternoon, and I thought I would just listen back to the episode that I made this time last year just to see what I was up to. And I recorded it on the 29th of April 2025, and quite a lot has changed since then. But I'm pleased to say that the audio quality has remained pretty much the same, so that's great. Now, I recorded the episode up on the plot, and I was actually in Kylie's room with Kylie and the babies, and it was so cute to hear their little voices on the episode. Oh, I'd forgotten just how amazing they are. None of the hens have gone broody this year, so 2025 was like a bumper year for broodiness. I could not stop them. Everybody was sitting somewhere on a nest. They all just went completely mad. And this year, absolutely nobody is broody, and it's really weird because sometimes even the warmth triggers them to go broody. Although last year Kylie went broody in January. I don't know what happened to her. She was just desperate to be a mum, bless her. So I was listening to me chatting to Kylie and the babies, and of course that was Lion Mo Lee, although back then he was known as Moland, son of Maurice, which I thought was very clever. But then it turned out he's a bit of a fighter, so he was renamed Kung Fu Mo Lee. And little Mo, who's now kind of called Mo. But it kind of made me a bit sad because Kylie actually passed away a few months after the babies were born. She kind of got them to full size. They grow quite quickly. And then just one day she'd gone. Not gone, obviously. She passed away. She died, not literally gone. But that was really sad because she was such a lovely bird. And she has like a twin sister called Danny. So I name all my birds after female singers. So we had Kylie Minogue and Danny Minogue. And I've still got Danny left. And they were funny little birds. They were just very small. They looked like pigeons, little grey pigeons. Anyway, sad. I miss Kylie. And I was actually talking about how I just planted my Nigella out, and I was really worried about how it was going to cope. And I find that deeply ironic because my Nigella this year is in the greenhouse. Obviously, the first batch I had to throw away because it didn't germinate. And 2 or 3 subsequent batches are progressing at the pace of a snail, which is kind of odd because it's been so nice and warm. I really thought things would have got going a lot quicker than they are, and I can't believe we're at the end of April and I haven't actually planted anything out, which is slightly terrifying. And I was quite convinced that this year I would be ahead of the curve. And as you know, I've got this really fancy spreadsheet that tells me what to do. And yeah, it's not worked because, as I say, last year I had Nigella planted out by this point, and this year I definitely do not. We were also at the beginning of a heat wave, which was one of about 4 heat waves that we had last year, and the start of the drought that lasted for months and months and months. So that was interesting as well, because obviously we've had this hot spell, but now it was very cold today. And then I think we've got 2 days of heat, Wednesday, Thursday. And then on Friday, it's going to rain. And then the rest of my app just says the week after that, it's going to rain, which is amazing. I've never been so excited to have rain because I am running out of water. I'd also just left the tap running on one of the IBCs last year. So I'd lost 1,400 litres of water. So it emptied one Bowser completely, and then it took 400 litres out of another one. So that was quite a disaster. But of course, it's been so dry for the last month that IBC1 has got only about 250 litres left in it anyway. So I'm not exactly in a better position than I was in last year. But the interesting thing, this is very interesting for me, is that I was talking about, it was so hot last year, I took a couple of panes of glass out of the greenhouse, the Perspex replacement glass because I was too tight to buy actual glass. So I had Perspex cut, which was cheaper. And I took a couple of panes of Perspex out of the greenhouse to try and keep it cool during the day because just having the door open and the roof vent wasn't enough. And one of those panes is still missing. So I found one. But how can you lose a pane of Perspex in a really tiny garden? It's really, really bugging me that I can't find that. Anyway, it was very interesting to go back and see how things were a year ago. So this weekend, I've had a really busy weekend, actually. I've been doing battle with the nettles, and my other half was good enough to come up on Sunday and give me a hand. Although there was obviously the standard miscommunication about timing, my mistake this time. But anyway, we got on with it and we made a plan. So this is the bed 4, which half of it is, well, no, not half of it. About, I don't know, a fifth or something is given over to foliage. And then the rest of it's going to be annuals. And it's 28 meters long, this bed. And it's at the bottom of the plot. So the soil is really, really nice, but it's got really thick nettles in it. Partly my fault because I've used the area as a bit of a dumping ground for nettles for years. And that's come back to bite me because they obviously rooted. So we decided that they needed to come out. And my other half had already made a start. And as you know, he likes to do things in a very proper, methodical style, which is very time consuming, but you end up with this incredible bed at the end where the earth is all turned over and lovely. And he's dug out literally every single strand, which is amazing. And so we decided that he would start one end and I would start the other. And we started. And after about an hour, I was so frustrated because he'd moved about what looked like an inch to me. And I was just getting really frustrated. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to rip them all out or rip them down and we can dig it over later, because the conditions at the moment are so perfect for the growth of the nettles. Like the warmth, they love it. We get a bit of moisture overnight just in like the dew and stuff. So they are just doing incredibly well. And the longer that they're in the ground with all the greenery on the surface, the faster they're going to grow and they're going to be putting energy into their roots and everything. So I thought the best thing to do is just take all the greenery down. And I have to say, it does pain me a little bit to do it because I am well aware that nettles are a breeding ground for particular types of caterpillar, and they're just a wonderful habitat. And if I had lots and lots of space, I would leave a nettle area. I mean, there are nettles in the rest of the field, but they're really concentrated in this area of the plot, which is unfortunate. So they had to go. But I did feel a bit guilty about it. And if it's any consolation, I got absolutely stung to pieces because I didn't have a long sleeve t-shirt on. I did at least have trousers on, which my other half hadn't put trousers on. He had shorts on. He wasn't naked. Anyway, I ended up looking like some creature from a horror movie. I was basically on my hands and knees racing up this bed, just ripping out nettles. And eventually I just got to him and he's like, what on earth are you doing? I was like, I haven't got time to wait. We just got to rip them out and then we can dig the bed over at our leisure. But at least we've slowed the growth down. So that's probably about 15, or at least 15 meters worth of nettles cleared. So that was amazing. I've also been mulching the roses, so that's bed 1 and bed 2, and also the bearded iris and the peonies, and then the eucalyptus, phlox, Japanese anemones, hydrangeas, all sorts of bits and pieces. So that's a really good job, and I'm glad I've done that. And also I've planted 3 of my climbing roses, and I know you'll be thinking, wow, that is so late. And I have had them since, I don't know, November, which is pretty shocking. But they did get potted up. I didn't heal them in because it was just too difficult to get them in the ground. So they've been potted up. I thought it's finally time to do it. And I was just having a dilemma about where to put them because I don't want the deer to eat them from the wrong side of the fence panel. But they're quite big roses. They're big climbing roses. And so in the end, I was like, right, they just need to go in the ground. So I thought I'll just go and do it, forgetting just how hard the ground is, how stony it is. And it was just took me absolutely ages. It was quite painstaking. And there are a lot of stones and rocks on the field as well. So it was not a very pleasant job, but I'm pleased to say that those guys are in. Now, yesterday was all about seed sowing, and I am on my 6th succession of seeds, 6th batch. I get confused with my own language here. Sixth batch I think I've done. So I did a load of asters, crespedias, my little yellow golf balls on sticks, the didiscus, cosmos, and sunflowers and zinnias. Now, ages ago, sometime last year, I was talking about sunflowers, and one of the listeners to the podcast messaged me and said I needed to get ProCut varieties. So if that was you, thank you very much, because that is exactly what I've ordered. And I have sown them, and I bought them in peach, which looks kind of yellow, but they call it peach, red and white. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing those. I do love a sunflower, and I did regret not growing them last year. I had some self-seeders, which did incredibly well, but I didn't have enough volume to warrant selling them to anybody. But I'm looking forward to seeing those. And as you know, I'm slightly obsessed with this spreadsheet, and I love updating it. It's very clever because it's not me, it's just the spreadsheet that's clever, because you can put all this formatting in and have all these columns, and it gives you a running commentary on what you're up to. And the total seeds sown so far this year is approaching 2,500, which was a bit of a shock to me, I have to say, because you sort of do things in 20s or 50s or something, and you don't really think that the numbers are going to mount up. But all of a sudden, we've got to nearly 2,500, which is pretty insane. And I don't think I have enough land to put 2,500 on. So that's going to be fun in a month's time. You come back and listen to the episode where I try and fit 2,500 plants into a really small bit of land. Not sure what's going to happen with that, but I thought better to have them, because some always just have a crisis and die off and don't make it. And maybe I'll just plant everything closer together this year and see what happens. I have picked up some netting, some support netting. It's a bit of a trial, actually. I had in mind something like stock fencing, but not metal, because it will be too hard, I think. But then I didn't want plastic, because I don't have plastic on the field. But the argument is I don't have plastic on the ground, because that is not something that I wanted to do. But the netting is going to be off the ground. So I thought, yes, I can allow myself to do that. So I've bought a roll of netting. It's about 2 meters by 10 meters long. So I think I'm going to cut it in half lengthways. So I've got 10 meter by 1 meter, and I'll have 2 lots of that, and then stretch them across the road pins and get those supports in place, because I'm looking at things like the Achillea, and they look like they're gearing up for something dramatic, and I have to be ahead of the curve for that. So hopefully that will do the job. It wasn't too expensive either, and I'm guessing it should last. I'm hoping it will last anyway. I don't know, because I've never been very good with staking, never used the netting before. So I'm hoping that I can actually clean it up at the end of the year, but maybe that won't happen. I don't know. We'll see. Now, the most exciting thing that happened today is that I had a visit from Fenella, who runs our local hub. Now, you'll know that I've joined up to the hub, and I'm very much looking forward to starting selling on it. It's open already this year. People are already buying and selling things from it, which is amazing. And Fenella, who runs it, she has her own flower farm just up the road from me. And she came to the plot this afternoon to have a bit of a visit. And I tell you what, I was more concerned about what drinks and snacks I was going to offer than actually the state of the plot. Because as you know, if you listen to last year's episode, when us growers went to visit Fenella's place and talk about the hub, she did the most beautiful arrangement for us all. And it was just gorgeous, and it was just gorgeous. And I thought, right, I am not going to be able to do better than that. But I've got to do something. I wanted to do something. I think if you have somebody come visit you, then, you should do drinks at least, because you never know if someone's going to be thirsty or whatever. Anyway, because I'm completely off grid and there's no facilities, I have to take everything from home, and it's fine. So I took some lovely ready-made elderflower cordial and some very unusual little French cakes that when I went house sitting, my clients had been out to France. They brought these amazing little cakes back, and they're, well, you don't need to know what type of cake they are, but they were really nice. Something to do with like an orange jam, really nice and very small. So you could just have one and it was enough. They were absolutely lovely. So we had a tour of the plot. We chatted about so much. Honestly, I could spend all day with Fenella. She's a fount of knowledge. She's been doing things like this for years, and she just has so much experience and knowledge and opinions about things. And it was just so interesting to chat and learn a bit more about how she thinks and about things, and just to learn from someone more experienced than myself. Then we sat down and had cordial and cakes, and then Lion started crowing, and he's right next to the table, so that got a bit deafening. One of the interesting things we talked about was, how much there is so much to do and managing our time. And we also talked about pricing and, how so many different elements of this business work and come together. It was absolutely fascinating. It really was. I did ask her if she would like to be a guest on the podcast, and she said no. And then she said she might think about it. So I'm going to ask her again a couple of times if she'd do it, because I think you would find listening to her really, really interesting, particularly if you are just getting started with cut flower growing, or you're thinking about it, or you're already doing it and you're thinking about joining a hub. I think you would find that really interesting. So I'm going to keep asking her because I think she'd be amazing. Now, the other thing that's happened is that I have just gone and panic bought some rose lilies. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with rose lilies. They are a double lily. And so the great thing about them is, well, from a cut flower perspective, obviously from a pollinator perspective, they are the devil, but we won't talk about that. From a cut flower grower perspective, they don't have any pollen visible. So you are not going to get covered in pollen. So they're great if you want to have lilies in arrangements or bouquets or on tables, but you're worried about the pollen staining wedding dresses or children or dogs eating them and dying. So I read about them ages ago and I thought they looked absolutely fascinating. And then, true to form, did not set a reminder, so I'd totally forgotten about them. And I remembered yesterday, so I've panic bought them, and I can't remember. I think I've only bought 10 or 20, something like that. Anyway, not a very large number, from a UK nursery, and they have been dispatched. They're on their way. I'm very excited. I'm going to put them in pots because I've got quite a few lilies at home. I've got some in the soil, but I've also got some in tubs, and the ones in tubs do incredibly well. There's not a lot of difference between growing them in a pot and growing them in the ground. And according to the nursery's website, they're quite happy to be in pots, which I think is correct. And they also prefer, apparently, an ericaceous compost. So if I put them in pots, which I'm going to, I can go and get a couple of sacks of ericaceous and they can have what they want. And I am tempted to keep them at home where I can keep an eye on them, because anything in a pot needs a lot of water, and water may be problematic this year. So I might just keep them at home and plant them all up and just see how I get on with them, just for a bit of an experiment. I've already got a fantastic, I think it's like an oriental lily at home that I bought about a decade ago when I went to Chelsea Flower Show. And you're not allowed to buy anything from Chelsea, apart from some stands in the flower tent are allowed to sell you bulbs and little tiny things like that. And this lily bulb is called Largo. And they had one on display, and it was the most incredible lily I'd ever seen. It was just gorgeous and it smelt amazing. So I bought a stash, and I have loved it ever since. It normally flowers when I go away, and there's no predictability to it because I never know when I'm going away. And the last couple of years, I haven't really been away at all. But no matter what's happened, it normally flowers while I'm doing something, which is just really unfortunate. But hopefully these rose lilies will be exactly what the wedding florists don't know yet that they actually can't live without. So having said all of that, I thought I'd feature the rose lily in my plant profile series on Friday. So if you're interested in learning a bit more, I will be going off to do a bit of research into those, and you can come back on Friday and have a listen to that and see if it's something that you're also interested in doing. Now, that is everything that I wrote down on my list to talk to you about this evening. And I'm afraid to say I have to do a list because otherwise I would just not even remember. I've been working all afternoon on the Shopify store, actually, because I thought I'd pretty much done it and it was kind of ready to launch. And then I went through just to tweak some things and found that it wasn't quite right. So I've made some changes to it and done some updates and stuff. And hopefully when I've actually got some flowers to put on it, I will be able to launch it and let everybody know. So what I've decided is to leave it closed to members of the public, just because I'm just not sure exactly what will happen if somebody goes on it, and I don't mean you, I just mean like a random person Googles it and goes on it and then decides to buy something because they don't necessarily understand how it works. And the thing about the Shopify store is if you did land on it by accident, you could just think that you could just buy anything and have it. Well, I've got rid of the delivery option because I'm not going to do that this year. I'll just do collections to start with. But I make things a lot clearer on my website about how it works. But if you end up straight on the Shopify thing, you could just decide, oh, I'll just order some flowers and they'll come and it'll be great. And so I thought, no, it can't just be completely open. It's got to be protected, and people need to register and then get the password to use it. And then I will know who is on there using it. So that is how it's going to go. It might change in the future, but I think sometimes my enthusiasm or optimism for these things outweighs the bigger picture, and I need to just rein it in a little bit and just keep it nice and small and straightforward, and really just stress test it this year, make sure it works perfectly before I start doing bigger, more complicated things with it. Anyway, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week. If you're in the UK, we have got 2 scorchio days to come and then lots of rain, which is amazing. So please enjoy the rest of the week. Come back and join me on Friday when I'm going to be talking about these rose lilies. And have yourself a great rest of the week. All the best.